So we talk a lot about data, as you may well know, and Phil does his regular monthly market updates on the UK golf market. And we had an email the other day from a guy up in Yorkshire who was just asking, well, all great numbers, but how can I practically use that on a day-to-day basis? So first off, Phil, a few questions. Where does the data come from?
Okay, so the data that Golf Datatech creates, which we report on every month, is created from data that's spat out from Xpos systems from about 700 stores across the UK. And that's a mix of both on-course shops and high street shops. So we've got big stores on driving ranges, we've got small stores on small courses, we've got quite a mix of different retailers in there. We take the data in, we clean all the data up, and then we use a proprietary model to represent the entire market so that we can take those 700 stores and then blow them up to the equivalent of the market so we can get an idea of what everyone's doing on average.
Okay, good to know. So where are we, I guess? Where are we at the moment in the market?
Well, at the moment, we're about 4% down on last year. Obviously, we've had quite a tumultuous period over the last few years, and there's been quite a lot of changes. 4% down doesn't sound great, but actually, if you look at the stats, last year, January was a bit of a freaky month with a lot of back-ended orders from the prior year. So if you look on a slightly longer-term context, we're actually 23% up in value versus 2019. So generally, the market's in good shape, and it's grown significantly since the pandemic. But at the moment, we're seeing a little drop, but I'm expecting good things, because actually when we look at the February numbers, February was actually a record month. It's the biggest February we've ever seen, so there's a lot of hot product out there and it's creating quite a lot of interest.
So great, so fantastic February, but as a general retailer in the golf market, what am I going to do with that information?
Okay, so this is where you have to kind of think about what the data's showing you. So there's two sets of numbers. There's macro numbers, which is the overall market, and there's some micro numbers which are broken down to some individual bits and pieces. Now, ultimately, the macro numbers are not necessarily things an individual retailer can affect, but because they can only control stuff that's going on inside their business. But what they need to be mindful of is that there will be impacts of the entire market that will affect their business. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, the fact the market's 5% up or 10% up, I don't care, because basically I'm 4 or 5% up. And I can understand that to a certain point. But what you have to be mindful of is that looking at the trends, there will be impacts on product availability and pricing that will be significantly impact you as the season goes on. So if the market's been very hot and it's up, you'll probably find that there's a potential struggle for stock. And we've seen that the last few years, where we saw all the growth in the market. When it got hot, people who were aware of what was going on jumped on, ordered the stock, and were able to make more sales as a result of it. The inverse is true when the market's going down. What we'll see is there's probably more stock availability, and there will be people that will jump more quickly onto a sale platform and look at reducing prices. So both those things will have impacts to an individual retailer in store, and it's having an understanding in the longer term how that's going to affect your business.
Okay, and what about on the micro level then? So how can that help?
So on the micro level, those people that participate with the Golf Datatech data, there's a monthly top 10 sellers report that comes out across all categories. Now on the micro level, it's really important to have an understanding of what those hot selling products are. Now if you're a retailer that doesn't have maybe 4 or 5 of the top selling products, what you've got to ask yourself the question is, are my customers buying those products from other stores? Because if I don't stock them, they may well be getting them from elsewhere. So that's a real day-to-day decision that you need to understand, and it gives you external context as to what's going on. So that's probably one of the key things. The second thing is then also understanding the pricing. There's always lots of advertising or people that take a lot of interest in what's going on online, but we actually report the actual ASPs of the products of all the sales that have gone through the stores, and that is really useful, because you may be affecting your sales in your store because you're charging a little bit too much, or you may be leaving money on the table because you're actually not charging enough as to what the general market is paying. So on a micro level, even down to an individual club or a wedge, there's information on a monthly basis that can help you do a better job.
Okay, and how do we get that? Because that sounds awesome.
So it's those guys that you've got Xpos, we can just sign up for the Golf Datatech retail order. It's free. The data comes to you every month. You don't have to do any work, but we just have to have your authorization to share the data. You share data with us. We share data with you. You get the reports. They're emailed to you kind of the middle, kind of 24 23rd, 24th of the month, so you can then review your performance versus the market, and then you can understand, you know, what's going on outside your store, and then how you choose to react is then obviously up to you, you know, through marketing or customer service or the way that you deal with your customers. But basically, at least it'll give you some understanding what's going on elsewhere.
Fantastic. Thanks, Phil. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of what's going on and how to use that data better. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mark.